This is Bob Stewart from XYZ News Station. In the year 1960, a woman named Harper Lee published a book called To Kill a Mockingbird. It has recently been discovered that the book was published under a false name, and Miss Jean Louise Finch, but you may know her as Scout, had actually written the biography of her childhood. Fans of the novel wait on edge after the announcement of a sequel release. In preparation for this release, we're here with the family of Mr. Tom Robinson and to hear the account of what happened that fateful summer and the events that followed. Here with me today is Helen Robinson, wife of Tom Robinson. Tom Robinson Jr., the first of 3 children, and Hazel Robinson, daughter of Tom Robinson Jr., and the grandchild of Tom Robinson Sr. Now, Miss Robinson, can you describe your late husband?
Tom was one of the kindest men I have ever met. He cared for everyone around him. My husband was a very large man, and he looked tough on the outside, but he had a soft heart. When he was around 12 years old, there was an accident with a cotton gin, and his left arm was fully 12 inches shorter than the right and hung dead at his side. He compensated for his disability on his left side with his strength on his right.
Did Mr. Robinson receive any compensation for his disability?
No, we did not. The Smith-Fest Act was passed in 1920 to help fund rehabilitation, but we never received any money, being black mom. I doubt any sort of rehabilitation would have helped my husband anyway.
I know it's been roughly 70 years since the death of Tom Robinson Sr., but can you still recall your reaction when you heard the news?
I can remember it like it was yesterday. The moment I heard the news, I was devastated. I remember a couple days back, Tom's lawyer, Atticus Finch, saying that he would probably be free from all charges. He told us not to give up hope. I thought that maybe we could put this madness behind us and continue with life as it was before. Following the news, my first thought was what to do with the children. How was I supposed to take care of them and get a decent job?
My condolences go out to you regarding Mr. Robinson's death. In the aftermath of the death, what was the reaction from the community?
The black community was very generous, especially those at my church. They gave me support both morally and financially. They helped me take care of my children while I was out trying to find a job.
If each of you could describe Mr. Robinson in one word, how would you describe him?
Polite. No matter who my husband talked to, he was polite and courteous, no matter if the person was white, black, or any other race.
Hardworking. Every day he would walk miles and miles just to go to work, wherever he could find it. Despite all of that, he would help others like that girl Mikayla at UL without it costing them a cent. My father was a good man.
I wish I had gotten the chance to know my grandfather. From what I have heard from my father and grandmother, I understand he was a very dedicated man.
Now, Tom Robinson Jr., you were only a little boy when your father died in the midst of a prison escape. What did you learn from your father before he passed?
Before my father was murdered, he always told me to work hard and never to get frustrated. And nothing worth anything if you can get it for free.
With those messages drilled into you throughout your childhood, I'm assuming that you were able to achieve some very impressive things.
No, sir, I wasn't. Since my mama had no one to assist her due to the murder of my father, I got to work earlier than most boys my age. I found a job at a construction company and earned a livable wage to help my mother and siblings and provide for them the best that I could.
Well, I'm certainly sorry for that. Can you describe your life back then?
Life was tough. Meals were hard to come by and we kept track of every penny. My mother worked 2 jobs and struggled to make ends meet. Despite all this, she always preached equality and not to hate anyone above us, especially the EOs.
How is education in Macomb?
I went to school both pre-boundary board and post-boundary board of education. I only went to segregated schools and all of our materials were secondhand and old. Our textbooks were inferior to that of white schools and we had no transportation. My siblings went to an integrated high school and the quality was far better. Even in the integrated high schools, there was de facto segregation, as the black folks only associated with the black folks, and the white folks only associated with the white folks.
And how is your career following high school?
Although the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination based on race in the workplace, there was still discrimination in Macomb. This may have been because no one in Congress bothered to enforce the laws, but it was also because people in Macomb didn't like change that much. I had a hard time finding work, especially considering that I only had a high school education. Finally, my friend's father gave me that construction job I mentioned earlier.
On the topic of discrimination, how did you feel about Dr. King, Malcolm X, and Johnson's Civil Rights Act?
In my home, there was always a picture of Dr. MLKJ as we always believed that nonviolence was the best approach to solving any problem, and I disagreed with Malcolm X's philosophy of violence. When the Civil Rights Act passed, I was very happy as Jim Crow laws were banned and there was little legal discrimination. Still, laws can only be changed so much, and although the Civil Rights Act was a step in the right direction, it didn't change much in a small town like Macomb. I tried to be realistic back then. I didn't believe change would happen immediately.
What are the results that you have seen firsthand from this legislation?
Back when my father was on trial, I saw no black men on the jury. At the time, I didn't understand why, but I later learned that the judges used to dismiss black men based on race. I then heard about Baston v. Kentucky, a decision that prevented segregation of the jury. As a result, in the 90s, I served on a jury. I felt pride that I could possibly help the justice system. If there were men like ours in the jury back when my father was on trial, everything would have turned out differently.
Thank you for your time, sir.
You're welcome.
Now I will talk to Hazel Robinson, the granddaughter of Tom Robinson and the daughter of Tom Robinson Jr. She is a prominent lawyer who currently lives in Philadelphia. How are you doing, Hazel?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm also doing well. Now, what do you know regarding the legacy of the late Mr. Robinson Sr.?
My parents have always told me to work hard, like Tom Robinson Sr. I know that he worked hard and was compassionate. Many times my parents have told me the story of how Tom Robinson Sr. used to help other people in the community with their chores at no cost at all. I've accepted what happened to him and know that I cannot change it, but I try my hardest to make the future better, like he tried to do.
You were the first member of your family in generations to leave Macomb County. What factored into this decision?
For as far back as I can remember, my family has always been in poverty. When we first came to this country in the 17th century, we were slaves from the Gold Coast of Africa. Even after slavery, we worked menial jobs, as evidenced by my father's and grandfather's jobs. When we were kids, we always heard of the opportunity and non-discrimination in the North, but lacked the money to travel there. Once I worked a few years here in Macomb, I traveled to Philadelphia and have enjoyed it ever since.
Describe your journey following high school.
In high school, I had great grades, and as a result, I was the first one in my family to go to college. I went to a local Alabama university and enjoyed the atmosphere, and was introduced to new people. There I studied law and worked at a law firm in Macomb for several years. When I finally saved up enough money, I traveled to Philadelphia and opened a private law practice there.
What type of cases do you specialize in?
I specialize mostly in sexual harassment and discrimination cases.
What previous cases do you think set an important precedent for your work today?
As I have said, I deal with many sexual harassment cases, so the 1986 Supreme Court case Meritor Savings Bank v. Vinson has allowed for many of my cases to fall under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The ruling of this case says that discrimination based off of sex that creates a hostile work environment qualifies as sexual harassment under Title VII. In addition, another 1986 Supreme Court case comes to mind, Batson v. Kentucky. This case says a potential juror cannot be removed from the jury pool just because of their race. This allows all of my clients, no matter what race, a fair trial, unlike my grandfather, whose jury was made of entirely white men.
Thank you all so much for joining me today and sharing your story with our viewers. You have been through great tragedy and suffered through harsh times that rocked our nation. As Ms. Hazel Robinson said, although we cannot change what happened in the past, we can make the future a better place. I'm Bob Stewart from XYZ News signing off. And make sure you read the sequel to Kill a Mockingbird.